Well, another Christmas is behind us, and I hope your Christmas was absolutely wonderful. My Christmas was a little different this year. My husband and I traveled to Portugal to spend Christmas with my parents. For the past several years, my parents have come to the US to spend Christmas and the majority of the month of December with me, and they're often joined by my sister and her family. While we do travel to Portugal quite frequently, our trips usually take place in the summer or early fall, so it had been about 30 years since my last Christmas in my country of birth. In this video, I'm sharing some highlights of my trip that include a tour of my parents' apartment, also of their 300-year-old windmill, which they converted into a weekend retreat, and I'm also including some scenes of Lisbon, all decorated for the holiday, and of a traditional Christmas Eve dinner. I hope you enjoy this video. I thought I would show you a little bit of my parents' apartment. So this is the entryway. It's a very small entryway, and if you go straight ahead, that leads to the bathroom and to the bedrooms. And to the right is the combination dining room and living room. My parents have lived here for about 30 years, and this is an apartment on the 4th floor of the building. And my father did a lot of the interior finishing work himself. For example, he laid all of the marble, this marble floor. My father was a master tile and marble installer, and he also worked in the home construction industry, so he has a lot of experience in this area. The apartment is approximately 1,000 square feet, and it has 2 full baths and 3 bedrooms. There is also a rooftop garden and a garage. It's a pretty spacious apartment by Portuguese standards. There's a balcony on the side. There is ocean view on both sides of the apartment, so from the family room side and also from the kitchen. Some notable pieces of furniture include this bar that my father had custom made for the space. It's solid walnut, and this is where he stores his liqueurs, his beverages, and some glassware, so it's within easy reach when my parents are entertaining. Even though the apartment has a wood-burning fireplace, it does have wall-mounted radiators in every room, which keep the apartment nice and toasty in the winter. Even though the winters are fairly mild in Portugal, it still is common for people to use some sort of heating source, either a space heater or these radiators for heating. Now on to the dining room. The focal point of the dining room is definitely this beautiful china cabinet that my parents had custom made for this wall. This is a solid walnut piece, and you can see that there's a beam that runs across the width of the dining room, and this piece, the height of it is just under that beam. So this is a really ornate piece. It has beveled glass door fronts, as well as these mirrored inserts that are also beveled. It's unfortunate that the traffic flow in the dining room forces the dining table to be pushed up almost right next to the china cabinet, so it really covers the bottom part of it, but there's really no way to get around it, because anywhere else that you put the dining table, it would impede the entry into the dining room. So unfortunately, this is where it has to be, but you can see all of the beautiful detail that this piece has. There is a large dining table and 8 chairs, and the chairs are also solid walnut. They have a very pretty carved detail at the top, and the seats in the back are in cognac leather, accented with nailhead trim. This is the view from the kitchen window, which is on the other side of the apartment. As I mentioned, this is on the 4th floor, so you have a nice view of the surrounding area. You see the ocean in the distance. On weekends, you see little sailboats there, and in the summer, you see cruise ships in the morning sailing into the port of Lisbon, and then in the late afternoon, you see them sailing back out. So there's always something to see. I love sitting right by this window, just seeing everything that's going on. I'm just zooming in here. There is a cargo ship sailing by at the time that I'm filming. It's just a very pretty view. The following day, we visited my parents' windmill. This windmill is about 300 years old, and when my father purchased it almost 10 years ago, it had been abandoned for almost 50 years. So it was really at the point where it was almost falling down. Over the last 10 years, my father has spent a lot of time doing much of the work himself, and he has transformed this into a little weekend home type of place. So initially there was just the windmill and some outbuildings. This is one of the outbuildings, which my father has since turned into a family room. There's a fireplace in there, and there's a couch and a large table for family meals. This whole area has been turned into a very nice outdoor living space. There is a swimming pool, and there are also fruit trees and plants, which, considering it's December, still look very pretty, very green, due to the mild weather. Because the windmill is on a hill, there is a very nice view of the surrounding area, and you also see some of the ocean in the background there in the middle. These 3 clay roofs that you see, these are 3 wooden bungalows that my parents used for extra accommodations when hosting friends and family. This is the original door of the windmill. When my father purchased it, it was just the windmill itself. So everything else added to the right of the windmill was something that my father did to make it livable and functional. My father also built this wood-burning oven, and next to it is a barbecue. In the summer months, when my parents are at the windmill, most of the cooking happens outside. The kitchen is rather small, and it's just much more convenient to cook out here. So now, going inside the windmill, I'm going to show you a little bit of the interior space. So this is the main area. This is a little sitting area. You can see the stone walls. There isn't a lot of room for furniture just because of the shape of the mill. So my parents had to get creative, and they had this sofa custom made that kind of hugs the back wall of the windmill. This is the door that we saw from the outside. You can see just how thick these walls are, probably 2-3 feet wide at this point. And there are little recesses in the walls, little niches that my mother uses to display her favorite ceramics. Now I'm going to take the stairs to the second floor of the windmill. And here we have the first bedroom. You can see everything is very simple, not a lot of room for decoration. There is a trundle bed. There's some storage under the bed, which helps. And a window that lets in sufficient light to see the inside of the mill. There's this antique washstand. And there was this recess in the walls. I don't know if this was originally here or if my father added this, but my mother uses this as a closet and for storing bedding and blankets and such. Now that I'm editing the video, I realized that I was moving the camera way too fast. I hope I'm not making you dizzy with my sudden jerks. I will try to keep that in mind for future videos. Now on to the third level of the windmill, and this is where the master bedroom, if you can call it that, it's the main bedroom. And this has a full-size bed. I think it's a full. It looks too small to be a queen. But again, minimal furniture here. My parents don't use this as a full-time residence. It's just for the weekends, or if we have guests coming from out of town, they think it's charming to stay here. There is a bathroom here, so they don't have to go all the way downstairs to use the main bathroom. This bathroom has a toilet and a sink. And there is also a door that leads to a little balcony that has a nice view of the windmill property and the surrounding area. As you can tell from these shots, the windmill is not in the middle of nowhere. It is in an area surrounded by a lot of development. There are roads, there are shopping centers, all within a relatively short distance, which is completely different than what this area used to look like. I used to come here as a little girl before my father had the windmill. We had friends who lived nearby, and this whole area was just fields of wildflowers and wild blackberry bushes. So it looks completely different from what I remember at that time. I'm back on the main level of the windmill, and this is the area that my father added when he purchased the mill. There is a full bathroom here with the shower, the bidet, the toilet, and the vanity. The kitchen is small, but it has all of the modern conveniences, and also this hearth that my father built, and it houses their cast iron stove. The rest of the furniture is very functional. There's a hutch that my mother uses for storing some ceramics that she uses for entertaining, and there is a rather large table for the space where my mother can seat 10 people. So sometimes in the winter, they will have meals inside the kitchen. There is a chicken coop on the property, and these are eggs from my mother's chickens. On this day, the weather was so beautiful that we decided to have a barbecue. So this is why we lit the barbecue for grilling some chicken later in the day. This is the back of the windmill, and my father has surrounded the property with an orchard that has all types of fruit trees and nut trees. So there's always something to harvest. My parents always say that they never buy any fruit because starting as early as March, their trees start producing fruit, and that goes all the way to October or November. So there's always something in season, whether it's apples, figs, peaches, you name it. We made a trip to the local mall to do some Christmas shopping. And this is my favorite grocery store in Portugal. I don't know if you're like me, but when I travel, I love going to the local grocery stores. I love to see what is available on the shelves for people in other countries. This is a huge grocery store. It's actually a supermarket because they sell everything, sort of like a super Target or a super Walmart. They have everything from food to pharmacy. They sell all kinds of outdoor items. And this supermarket, it's called Continente, and it runs the whole length of that side of the mall. I'm going to share with you some of my favorite areas of the supermarket. The first one being the cheese section. The selection here was unbelievable. They have 5 of these huge refrigerated boxes. I don't know if that's the right term, but they have cheeses from all of the regions of Portugal. Portugal is a small country. It's about the size of the state of Indiana, but it's divided into several regions, and each region produces its own specialties. Wines, cheeses, there are special foods from each area. So these cheeses come from all over Portugal. Some of them are made with sheep milk, others with goat. Some of them are mixed with different milks, and there are hard cheeses, there are smoked cheeses, there are fresh cheeses, there are soft cheeses. If you're a cheese lover, this is heaven for you. It is for me anyway. I might be biased, but I think Portugal produces some of the best cheeses in the world, and they really don't get the recognition that they deserve. Another food product that is near and dear to the hearts of Portuguese people is the codfish. This is codfish that has been cured, dried, salted, and the most popular one comes from Norway. And the Portuguese use codfish in multiple recipes, all of them delicious. Of course, because it's salted and dried, it has to be rehydrated in water before you cook with it, but it's really delicious. The wine selection is also pretty impressive. You have wines from all over Portugal. Like I said, each region produces its own wines, and there are dessert wines, after dinner wines, liqueurs of all sorts, and you can get a very good bottle of wine for about 3 or 4 euros, so you don't have to spend a lot of money in Portugal to drink good wine. I just enjoyed looking at all the labels, reading, seeing where the different wines come from. Portugal has a very famous wine. It's called Vinho Verde, which means green wine, and it's called that because it's made with young grapes, which give it this sparkly, effervescent quality. It makes it the perfect wine for summer, and it pairs very well with seafood. I visited the bakery section next, and I saw this big table full of fruitcakes. I know fruitcakes are not well liked in other countries, but the Portuguese love them. They're called bolo rei in Portuguese, which means king cake, and they are part of every Christmas table in Portugal. And we also have a female equivalent, which is called the queen cake, or bolo rainha, which has brandy and port wine, so it's a boozier version of the fruitcake. No trip would be complete without going to downtown Lisbon to see the light displays. The city of Lisbon really went all out this year. They had lights on every street, different decorations throughout the city. They had these little Christmas markets set up throughout, and we just enjoyed walking around. There were lots of people around. Lots of tourists, as well as lots of local people as well, that brought their families to see the lights. We also went to see the big Christmas tree in one of the main squares in Lisbon, which is called the Praça do Comércio. And this is a really beautiful area in the summer. There are lots of restaurants and bars. And that arch that you see in the background leads to a pedestrian street where there are, again, lots of restaurants, boutiques, coffee shops, so it's a really nice place to walk. I'm always fascinated by the beautiful designs of the Portuguese sidewalks. These are all made with black and white stones, and while they're beautiful, they can be quite treacherous when they're wet. So if you visit Lisbon, make sure you wear comfortable, well-fitting shoes with rubber soles. That's very important. On top of the hill, you see the castle of St. George, all lit up for Christmas. The oldest parts of this castle date back to the 6th century, so it's been watching over the city of Lisbon for many, many centuries. And it's such an iconic symbol of the city of Lisbon. have to share my mother's Christmas tree with you. This tree is about 50 years old. My parents bought it. We immigrated to the US in 1978, and a year later my father went to the local grocery store and bought this tree. My mother absolutely loves this tree. My sister and I tried to convince my mother to upgrade to one of those pre-lit trees. She refuses. She's in love with this tree. When we moved to Ohio, my parents became friends with an elderly gentleman who had decided that he was no longer going to put up a tree for Christmas. So he gave my mother his entire collection of Christmas ornaments. And many of these were the original shiny bright ornaments that were so popular in the 50s and 60s, I believe. So my mother still has a large collection of shiny bright ornaments, which she hangs on her tree every year. My mother likes to keep everything else simple as far as decorations. The other area of the family room she decorated was the mantle with some stockings and a garland and some Christmas candles and a Santa, and she has a little nativity set off to the side. This was Christmas Eve, and that's really the big night for celebrating for Portuguese families. And there are special dishes that most families prepare. So in the kitchen, my mother has octopus or octopi. I'm not sure what the correct term is, but there are 4 of them in this tray. And she has cleaned them and washed them, and they are ready to be cooked. I hope you're not squeamish. It does seem like an unusual thing to eat if you're not used to it. So let me know in the comments below if you've had octopus and how you feel about it. I think it's delicious, but I've been eating it since I was a little girl. Octopus is one of the traditional foods for Christmas Eve, and the way my mother prepared it is she boiled them for about an hour until they were tender, and then she cut them up, so cut up the tentacles, and they went into a tray, into the oven with garlic, lots of garlic, olive oil, and some roasted potatoes, where they became this delicious golden brown. The other traditional Christmas Eve food is codfish, and we make codfish in different styles. The one my mother prepared for Christmas Eve was, it's called bacalhau com natas, which is baked cod with layers of onions and fried potatoes and heavy cream. So it's really creamy and delicious, and one of my favorite ways to eat cod. And here's my plate. So I have some of the codfish, I have the octopus, I have some greens that go very well with the octopus and the cod, and of course those delicious golden potatoes. Afterwards, the table is cleared and the other traditional foods of Christmas Eve are laid out. So we have the French toast working from right to left, and then we have the codfish balls, we have some fried octopus, and the last ones are a sort of a donut covered with sugar and cinnamon. And of course you can't forget the aletria, which is here, and it's a dessert made with angel hair and lemon peel, sugar, cinnamon. Really delicious. Thank you so much for stopping by today, and I hope to see you in future videos.